All right, welcome back, Sound Life, to the Kingdom Conversations podcast. We have a very special guest this week on this episode, Pastor Sean. Welcome.
I'm glad to be here, Amy.
Good, yes. We're glad to have you. We are going to be talking about parenting, and specifically, you've been having this thing called book club, parent book club, and there's been great conversation and a lot of lessons to be learned and a lot of great books that you've read, this being one of them, right? So First and foremost, tell us a little bit about what this book club has been for you guys.
All right, book club. I think it's super important. There's a lot of great research. There's a lot of incredibly intelligent people out there that have dedicated large chunks of their life in order to write.
Yeah.
And so one of the cheat codes of life is to read what other people have just spent their life dedicated to. Mm-hmm. To say, okay, I'm going to recognize this person as an expert, and I'm going to allow their effort and research into this subject impact my life. Yeah. And so we've done that. We've read a couple of books, and then we've had great conversation in the room, because I think it's great anytime you have people learning and then able to encourage one another.
Yeah.
I think that's
always
good
a
thing.
win. Yeah. And that's such a, like you said, kind of a cheat code. Not only are you learning from the author of the book, but then each other, and having that community and learning from each other's mistakes and each other's wins and all of that. So that's really, really awesome. And we have the book here, the last book club.
Yeah, man.
You just a couple weeks ago had a book club.
Yeah, we did. We hosted.
So this was the book. Hold on to your kids. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, and the thing, if you read the tagline, why parents need to matter more than their peers. So one of the things that is kind of fascinating is, okay, so who are your kids learning from? Are they learning from you as a parent? Or are they learning from their teacher at school? Or are they learning from their friends? Because, we have to, really evaluate who we're allowing to speak into our kids' lives.
Yeah. And to what degree, right? We know there's influences all over us, whether we're a little kid or even an adult. Yeah. But what do our children learn from the most, right? What influence is present in the strongest way? And so I think, I took time to read this book. If you're, becoming a parent or are a parent, super great book. I mean, a great concepts that I've never even thought of before. But I can look back at my own upbringing and also, looking ahead to, this new season. I'm becoming a foster parent in this new season. And so learning how to be intentional as a parent. And it's not, there's problems that life changes and culture changes and all these things evolve. And it's not that parents all of a sudden are just really bad at parenting, right? That's not the issue.
No.
But we're just learning what's changed about culture and what's changed about how parenting works with the kids that are in this world right now, right? And the different problems we face.
For sure. And they painted I'd like to read a quote just to start right out of the book, page 4. It says this. It says, "Today's parents love their children as much as parents ever have. But the love doesn't always get through. We have just as much to teach, but our capacity to get our knowledge across has somehow diminished. We do not feel empowered to guide our children towards fulfilling their potential. Sometimes they live and act as if they have been seduced away from us by some siren song we do not hear." And so I think that's kind of the crux of the matter. And if we can somehow kind of get back to the basics of the fact that help our kids view us as parents as a resource to their life. Because sometimes they're like, well, I have Google and I have YouTube and I have, I don't really need you. Well, it's far from true.
Absolutely.
Because parents have the opportunity to direct and lead and kind of accomplish some goals as they teach. And so here's the crux of the matter of the book. So we have peer-orientated children and we have parent-orientated children.
Mm-hmm.
And the book opens up right off the bat, right at the beginning, and it says, hey, this is kind of a cultural phenomenon that happens in the United States. Because if you go around the world and in different places, kids are parent-orientated. We're here, it's one of the things where we set up play dates for them. We send them away to school. We have them go to after-school activities. We provide social functions for them. And so some of it is, I believe, that parents have kind of abdicated their place, and then they're disappointed when they feel the burden to share something.
Right. No
one is there listening. And so that's kind of the crux of this book. I would encourage everybody, find books, find things to read, find things to study, ask other people that have more experience, all of those things. So if we can help kids be parent orientated, if they can orientate to their parents to where their parents are like the primary voice in their life. As little kids, it's easier because they can't go buy their own ice cream.
Right.
They need you. Even you see some renaissance of that happening when a young man is in his teen years, right there around 16, all of a sudden their respect level and their need of parents elevates when they need to borrow the car because mom and dad have resources of a vehicle that they don't.
Yeah.
And so we see things, and I'm not advocating holding those things over, but I really worked hard to make sure that my kids knew that, hey, if they needed something, come and ask mom and dad first, because we might have the resources, we might have the answer, or we have the ability to go and find or get the resources that we need in order to help them.
Right, and we want that to be their natural place to go, their first place to go, right? And you mentioned a lot of things, just cultural norms that are kind of how we see, kids living their childhood now, right? And not to mention the phones and the social media and all these places that is just kind of a normal thing for kids to experience at a young age, going off, playing sports, and they're just peer. Everything is about being with their friends and the kids of their age, which is not a bad thing by any means. And a lot of times we're doing those things from the right heart, right? Like parents aren't sending them off to sports because they just don't want to be around their kids, right? Like it's well-meaning, but now we're starting to realize people who write these books are realizing what maybe we have missed in that action. And so that is very eye-opening. And you reading that quote at the very beginning, I think might make people feel like, oh, okay, it's not just me. It's not just my kids. It's not this problem that, I'm not going to be able to fix, right? Like we have the resources, we have the knowledge to take stabs at getting that orientation back in the right place, right? And so that's the hope of like, okay, there is this kind of phenomena happening in our kids in the next generation, right? And I don't think it's a new thing. We're just maybe understanding it better.
Right. And can I read something else to you?
Yeah.
That is one of the reasons peer-orientated kids often appear to be much more confident and sophisticated, when in reality they are the blind leading the blind. The net effect of not wearing their confusion on their faces is that our instinct to guide them remain dormant, and our ability to collect them is diminished. And so this is kind of fascinating to me, because if your kid doesn't know what they're doing, we want to know as parents. You want that honest communication of, hey, I'm lost, I'm floundering, and so if a child, has all the right things happening, they look right, they dress right, they talk right, and you don't, because you're the parent, but they're fitting in really well with their peers, but not connecting to you. So when that comes down to the fact where, okay, so where do they go for the resources? Who do they go for the information? And as a parent, I have some things that I would really say that I do better than their peers. Because you think of unconditional love and those things, friends don't necessarily have that.
Right.
You could hurt a friend and that friendship can be over.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, my 3 kids will always be my kids.
Right.
They don't get to trade me in on a different model or outgrow me or
Right.
or anything like that. There's a ability for me to love and steer them with unconditional love and really help them with the resources that they need.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that change my priorities? Yes. Does that change my effort in different things? Yes. Mm-hmm. But those are all good and healthy choices that parents can make, because we're in this for the long run. I think that's the thing that peer orientated, short term, great. Mm-hmm. But the long term, there's a lot of gaps that happen in that.
Totally.
And so I would just encourage parents to remember, hey, you're in this for the long haul. I mean, I have 27, 24, and 20. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be mean to them, but I'm just now really starting to enjoy them, because it's like they're not as much work.
Right.
And it's exciting to see them, serve God. And it's exciting them to see some of the things that I've taught them come into focus, and it's great to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. So, but if you asked me, at 13 years old, I know that it's hard.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I'm not here to make excuses or say, hey, we have some secret recipe that we can just do. So.
Right. Yeah, because the goal in all of this is not to make parenting easier, right? It might actually feel like it gets harder when you're doing it the right way, right? But it's for that long game. So we didn't sign up. Nobody signed up to be a parent because it's easy and gratifying and makes you feel really great about yourself. Nobody signed up for parenting for that reason, right? But there's fruit in it, right? It's a sobering reality that this is the one thing in the world that lasts for eternity. Humans.
Wow.
Right? A soul. Not just a body, but a soul. That when you are the biological parent of, you're actually partnering with God to create this soul that will last for eternity. Yeah. And then as you're parenting that soul, you are parenting a soul that will last for eternity. Right? That's a big deal.
Right.
That's a long game deal.
Yeah, I would encourage people to even change the metric of how they evaluate themselves. Because we have a lot of situations in life where we go, oh, I did that well, or I didn't do that well. Well, truth be known, the grades haven't come back yet. Mm-hmm. We have to remember that we're making decisions, and we're creating attachments, and we're creating healthy relationships that will affect how our children have relationships and attachments to others. Mm-hmm. And so it really is. It isn't just about today. It's about 5 years in the future. Mm-hmm. It's about 10 years in the future. Yeah. And then here's the deal. We want those kids to become healthy parents themselves. Mm-hmm. And then we get to celebrate as grandparents as we get to give them some reprieve and spoil our grandkids.
Totally. Seeing that generational influence of what the work you put in. Yeah. And I think just something that came to mind just now is, as we're talking about this being the long game, we can't base our success in the long game off of short-term responses, right? If we're playing the long game, then the results, the fruit of that is also the long game, right? So if we're playing the game right, we have to also go off the right standards for success.
Yes.
Right? If I'm playing the long game, then I have to choose to not base it off of the short-term results, like the eye rolls and the maybe snark comments from the kids that are not happy about the long game that's happening, Right. We have to be careful to not, because it's easy. They're right there in the moment. The maybe lack of instant gratification or the opposite of instant gratification is going to happen. So we have to work to not fall into that trap, right?
Right, but how many times have your mom done something loving to you, and you knew it was loving, you knew it was kind, you really enjoyed it, but you didn't want to let anyone know. So maybe that eye roll or that snarky comment came out more out of an insecurity of, hey, I'm bigger, or I can do this on my own, where really your mom was doing this great thing.
Yeah.
You enjoyed every minute of it, but you didn't want to let anyone else know about it.
Right. And as children, our ability to play the long game is a little less there. We haven't developed the long game muscles yet, right?
Yeah.
So we're just thinking, these vitamins are disgusting. Why are you making me eat these vitamins? I'm going to eye roll and whatever. But I know what my parent is asking me to do is for my betterment, right?
Yes.
We understand it, but we don't quite enjoy it yet.
Right. For the really, because I think most parents would agree. We want so much more for our kids than we even have for ourselves. And so I think that's that unconditional love. That's that sacrifice that we make, because we're investing in the future of our kids. And then really our relationships, how that works, Deuteronomy, it says this in chapter 6 verses 4-7. It says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your
heart,
with all your mind, soul, and all your strength," right? Yep. So we know the verse, we know what it is, but then listen to what it says next. "These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up." Here's the deal. I don't know what you think about that, Amy, but really God just set up a 24/7 thing right there, where it's like 24/7 that, hey, we're supposed to be like doing these things, impressing what God has for us and passing that on to our children. That's the number one thing that we're trying to do, is to make lifelong followers of Jesus.
Yeah.
We want them to have healthy relationships with us. We want them to have healthy relationship with their Heavenly Father. And then I happen to believe that if you have a healthy relationship with your parents, you have a healthy relationship with God, the healthy relationship with your peers is soon to follow.
Right.
So I'm not advocating for, just do this and neglect that. I'm saying that when we have our priorities in the right order, that actually that those peer relationships, they end up healthy too, because of the healthy relationship with parents and the healthy relationship with God.
Yeah. So how do we live this out? We're talking about kind of that word collecting our kids, bringing them back into that healthy, right priority relationship with us. So is that like super exciting? Let's just take them on vacation and fix it in 7 days.
Okay, well, some of that is great.
Yeah.
I'm not. I would be a huge advocate of going backpacking with your son, or going on a trip with your daughter, or so even family vacation. Family vacation is great. Spend time at the beach together. It's time.
Yes.
So here's the thing that's interesting. Is there's a word that's being used a lot out there right now, and that's the mundane. The mundane. We have mundane things in our life.
Totally.
It isn't really the things that we love. But here's the deal. What happens if we begin to reclaim and take back some of those mundane things? Where, hey, doing the laundry at home could be fun if mom and daughter are doing it together,
right? Or
mom and son doing it together. Because dads, maybe they're teaching their daughter to change the oil in the car, and then mom's teaching the boys how to do laundry.
Right.
There's lots of different things that you can do. It's amazing to me how sitting on the couch, watching TV and folding laundry together, or being outside, leave the house. I mean, your dad's always working on something. You get sucked into projects all the time, right?
I held the flashlight like nobody's business growing up.
So that's the mundane, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because that's you gain an appreciation of your dad has a skill set. He has a skill set and a talent that you see because of proximity and time spent with him.
Yeah.
And then here's the part that is hard, because I don't know how to make this easy for parents, but sometimes you have to make hard decisions in order for those kids to come back to collect them. For you to reorient them to collect them, you have to make difficult decisions. And I'd like to read one last quote.
Yeah.
So we need to create an attachment void by separating the child from their peers, and then place ourselves in the void as substitute. It is important to remember that peer-oriented children have a high attachment need. Otherwise, they would not be peer-oriented. The lack of proximity with peers is likely to be just as intolerable as the attachment voids were with the parents in the first place. So here's the interesting part. We go, well, they're not attached to me. Well, they're not attached to me because I gave them $20 and sent them to the mall. Where maybe that attachment changes. Instead of sending them to the mall with their friends, you go, hey, would you go to the mall with me? Or even like, I find, boys that they'll do a lot of things for food. So it's like they love food. They want to have, food at home. They want to go out to restaurants. They want to stop for snacks. They want to, it's amazing what those times in a car side by side, talking about things, you get a deeper conversation if you're interacting with those things, on the way to get a hamburger than you are when it's like they come home from school. Because sometimes we as parents, our interest in what they're doing could maybe feel a little bit like an interrogation, right? Yeah. We have to be careful about those things, how we do it too. So I think that's the reclaiming of the road trip, the reclaiming of the vacation, the reclaiming of the mundane chores and things like that happen. And then I'm mesmerized. We have three. At one point, we had 3 fledgling adult children at home, right? So my wife and I, with 3 of these kids all at home, it was amazing. If we said, okay, we're going to set a timer on the microwave and we're going to clean this place up for the next 30 minutes. And boom, some music gets turned on. Kids are scurrying around. Mom and dad are scurrying around. We're all working together, getting things organized, getting things picked up. And then guess what happens? We actually enjoyed the moment of working together.
Totally.
And then it created space to do something enjoyable with them afterwards. So I think that creating the void of how do we create space for them to need us, not in a negative. I'm not trying to say to press them down. No. I'm trying to say to open yourself up to that attachment.
Right. Yeah, and I think the key thing there is just being side by side, right? Because if you were to just every lesson was learned across the table with either an interrogation or a lecture or whatever, right? There's a time and a place for those sit down across the table moments. But I learned so much just from doing things side by side with my mom and dad. Or even conversations, moments where I shared really truthfully what I was feeling and thinking and what was going on in my life side by side, because the pressure is removed, right? You're not sitting down with a light shining in your face with the interrogation. That's probably not even what's happening, but the child feels that way.
Right. It wasn't intended that way.
It wasn't intended, but that's just how we naturally feel.
Right.
And so having that side by side opens up. And I've even seen it, being a leader at church, right? Like in my small group with, the teenagers at youth group, right? Like we do a lot and we get a lot of conversation going in our small group, but then as soon as we leave and we go, do something as a group outside of the church, we go to, have coffee and go for a walk or whatever it might be, even more gets built on that, right? Because we're side by side. The pressure's off. We're doing life together. We're just talking like friends would, but it's in that kind of mentorship kind of conversation.
Right, and trust and being comfortable and knowing that someone's committed to you. Dinner. Family dinner. Family dinner might sound like this. Well, how do you do that with everybody going different ways? Well, I would just encourage you to find one meal. Maybe it's not dinner. We did, my boys were big time into sports, so we did hot breakfast. So my kids had hot breakfast before they went to school.
Yeah.
And it was just a time where they could know that the meal was going to be there. They knew they were going to get something hot in their stomach. And it was amazing to me, the things that they shared without even being asked, because I pushed some fried eggs and bacon across the table to them. So
totally. And you're starting your day off before they go spend 8 hours with their peers at school.
Yeah.
They've started their day with that kind of refocused, reorient themselves around that dynamic of father-son relationship. So, yeah, that's like the best way to start your day, right? And you just make it work with what, like I remember kind of my hot breakfast moment growing up was I was a cheerleader, and so we had practice, and me and my friends were at practice till well beyond dinner time, the normal dinner time. And so my mom would come, and we had a carpool situation, and so me and a friend we lived nearby each other, and so my mom would pick us up from cheer practice. We'd head home, and she'd have a packed hot meal in thermoses for us to eat picnic style in the back of the car because we were starving. And in the moment, I just thought, oh, this is kind of fun, getting to eat a hot, nice homemade meal. It's, doesn't need to be fancy, but it was the thought put into it. And then me and my friend had that side by side with my mom as kind of that mentor to a friend and mom-daughter to, between her and I. And I look back and I couldn't tell you, hundreds of meals that I ate in the back of my mom's car on the way home after cheer practice. And, I couldn't tell you exactly the things that we talked about, but I know those moments had an impact on me and my friend.
Yeah, and you think about it, we have so many things that suck us in for our attention, right? You guys could have just played on your phone. You could have immediately put earbuds in.
Good old earbuds.
Done anything like that could have distracted from that moment. Yeah. But because you saw the investment of your mom, and you saw, I think probably you benefited even from your friend that really appreciated it.
Yeah.
Because you're like, wow, this is valuable, because maybe it was ordinary for you, but maybe it was extraordinary for her. And so I think that's another thing that as we incorporate their peers, we have an opportunity to speak into their buddies' lives as well.
Yeah.
So I wanted those boys to be at my house, so that they could know that I cared about my kids and that I cared about them. And, chips and soda, man, chip soda and buy extra hamburgers, do whatever you can to keep them there.
Yeah.
Gave me a position and a place to speak into their life. And it's funny, Amy, because this might sound hilarious, but I have a group of 27-year-old, 28-year-old young men.
Yeah.
They'll still invite me to the movies. They'll invite me to the movies because they were welcome in my home.
Right.
And they saw the investment and the love that I gave to my own children. And they were recipients of that.
Yeah.
Just by proximity.
Right.
And so now it's kind of cool. So when the new Marvel movie comes out, I'll get my invite. I'll get my invite.
28-year-old buddies will be going to the movies. I love it. Yeah. I can relate to that from the child perspective, because I didn't have the language to put towards it, but I was raised very parent oriented. And I loved it, right? I considered my parents friends, even though I knew there was a separation to parent relationship, but I enjoyed being with them and being around them, and I still do. And they made themselves available in that orientated way to me and to my friends. And so, they were always trying to be careful to not overstep and never let me have my friend moments, right?
Sure.
But they were available to me and my friends to the point where we all enjoyed hanging out with my parents, right? Like they weren't like the weird parents that were like, okay, when are they going to leave and let us have our own hangout time, right? Like we were calling them in to come hang out with us.
Yeah.
We were calling them to go to the movies.
Absolutely. So there you go. There you go.
It really does benefit, and it can happen in a way that's not cringy or weird or uncomfortable, right? Like it can be enjoyable for everybody.
Right. And it's funny because like take an interest in what they're interested in. You know, let them know how many kids, you know, they go, well, man, Dad, I never knew that you even could do that. And I have that moment once in a while with my dad. My dad will go, well, you never asked. And I told him, I scolded him the other day. You know, I'm 52 now, so I could scold my dad once in a while. But I told him, I said, I didn't know to even ask that. I didn't know. You could have volunteered that. And he's like, okay. So we chuckle and laugh and had a moment, because it's like, man, my dad really did do some things in his life. He had some experiences, and he has the history and the maturity to speak into my life. And I think that's a really important part. And then I would just say this as kind of a closing note, because I was orientated towards my dad. I love my mom, and both parents. I love both parents. But I think that my dad and I's relationship, that I knew that I loved him and he loved me, made it easier for me to trust God, that God loved me. And when a young person is able to look to God and say, hey, I know that if my earthly father loves me, I know my heavenly Father. And that just made it easier for me to love God. And that isn't that really the whole purpose of this whole thing, you know, where to make that the next generation, to pass that on to our kids, to have that legacy that we talk about, those
for sure,
that healthy relationship. We want them to have that with God.
Yeah, and really that's God's beautiful design of the whole entire family, the marriage, the parent-child relationship. It all points back to God himself and God's relationship with the church. And so, I mean, that's a beautiful thing that we want to represent well to the world around us and to our own families. So
yeah, and if we do it well with our own kids, it spills off onto our neighbors and onto our friends. With a thermos of and a hot meal in the back of a carpool. You know, and you think about it. So your mom redeemed a carpool moment where, to be honest, if you took a survey of 100 people, not very many people would say, hey, I look forward to carpool. Where your mom put a little bit of effort. And my gut says that if we asked her today, she would say, no, that was an investment. And I chose that, even when I had to like talk myself out of it sometimes and say, no, I'm not going to complain. I'm going to do this thing because it's going to make a difference in my daughter's life and also in her friend.
Totally, yeah. And I think just kind of as we wrap up, just getting super practical, these are kind of fun moments where we could see some excitement, some naturally more enjoyable, but then there's also obviously the hard discipline moments, right? And so from this kind of point of attachment and, you know, collecting our kids, how do we do that in those moments of discipline? What does that look like?
I think the big thing is to move past, to know that you're investing past the eye roll, past the grumpiness or the snarky words or whatever. You have to know, okay, so that's their emotion in the moment, but am I producing an environment that is going to help them in the future? Am I investing? Because I want you to know, I think that discipleship, mentoring, discipline, all those things are investing for your future. Because I want my kids to be more successful than I ever am.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to do better.
Right.
And so I think that even in those moments, if I can make sure that I express that to them and say, hey, this isn't because I'm right and you're wrong. This is because, I have some experience that you haven't had yet. And also, I want you to have greater success than I have. Mm-hmm. And I think the more that they can view it as you investing in them, mm-hmm. and I think now when you look back, you could see that some of that time you're like, if you asked your parents, they would say, well, we did that because we were investing for the future, because it probably wasn't always pleasant for them either.
I wouldn't imagine.
Neither person probably is celebratory in the
right.
moment, but we know that maturity means that we can look back and go, wow, Mom really does know what she's talking about. Dad, even though it pains me to say it, he knows more than right. I do. And I think that's a great thing to just, I would encourage every parent to view it as investment.
Yeah.
You're investing in your child's future as you discipline, as you correct. And then those are kind of the negative words. So if we use the word train, teach, coach. So remember, there's other opportunities to there's some very, very similar, right?
Yeah.
So remember that we have those opportunities to do that. And then if we're investing in them properly, the few times that we need to correct them, they're going to be more receptive to that.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of true, the cliche, like it hurts me more than it hurts you, right? Like the parents it's going to be painful, right? It's going to be uncomfortable. Like no parent is going to enjoy doing that and making those hard decisions, but just understanding that it is worth it, right?
Yeah.
That it is worth it to invest in the exciting moments when you're choosing to go on a road trip or a family vacation, or to bring a hot meal to the table or to the back seat of the car, or all those things, right? To plan a fun movie or game night with your family. Like there's all these things that a lot of them seem kind of basic, like we've said, mundane, right? The daily, consistent, every morning, every evening, daily disciplines that you're doing together as a family. You're choosing to invest in them, and it's going to require intentionality. It's going to require that investment. It's going to require that like belief in what you're doing.
Oh yeah.
But it is worth it.
Yeah, stack it up.
Stack it up. One brick at a time.
Little decisions stack up.
Yeah.
And become greater.
Yeah. Parenting doesn't just happen in one conversation, right? It happens in 18 plus years.
18 plus years.
We're going on 24 and my mom and dad are still working on me. But it's worth it. So that's the key, I think, for every parent or future parent. It's not easy, but it is worth it. And so don't let that be your metric for success, is how easy, how good did that feel in the moment. Because again, we're playing the long game, not the instant gratification game. So in it for the long game. We're going to talk about it, have conversations about it, have book clubs about it, read about it, and then go and live it out. So
right.
Let's do it together. And you have another book club coming up.
I do.
When is it?
I do. It's not until October.
So you have time to read the next book.
You have time to read the book.
Yeah. So check out our website. Make sure you are there for that, because this conversation is even better when there's a bunch of other parents talking about it. So make sure you're there for that and read the books, and we're here to be a resource to you as well. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.